You know that feeling when you're giving your time, your energy, your hearts, but deep down something's off. You're not being met with the same intention. You're not being chosen the way you're choosing them. And slowly, painfully, you realize you're just an option in their life. That moment hurts, but it's also the moment you wake up. Because here's the truth. The second you realize you're not being valued is the second you get to decide how you'll be treated from now on. You don't wait to be picked. You pick yourself. This isn't about revenge, ego, or playing games. It's about reclaiming your power and raising your standards. Because when someone treats you like you're replaceable, the most powerful thing you can do is walk away like you already know your worth. When someone consistently shows you through their actions that you are not a priority, it's easy to fall into the trap of making excuses for them. You tell yourself they're just busy, that they've been hurt before, that maybe if you're patient enough, things will change. You replay the good moments and convince yourself they mean more than the patterns of inconsistency you keep seeing. But deep down, there's a voice inside you whispering the truth. This isn't love, and it definitely isn't mutual effort. What you're dealing with is someone who treats you like an option, and the longer you ignore that, the more you betray yourself. This is one of the most difficult realizations to accept, especially when emotions are involved. We want to believe in people. We want to believe that they care, that they just need time, that if we hold on a little longer, they'll finally come around. But what you need to understand is that love doesn't need to be chased, and someone who truly wants you in their life won't keep you guessing. They won't disappear for days and expect you to still be there. They won't treat you like a convenience when they're bored, lonely, or between better options. When someone shows you through repeated behavior that they only come around when it suits them, it's no longer a one-off incident, it's a pattern. And patterns speak volumes. One of the most powerful things you can do is to stop analyzing their words and start paying attention to their actions. Do they make time for you consistently, or only when it benefits them? Do they ask about your needs, your feelings, your boundaries? Or is the relationship one-sided, with you constantly giving and them constantly taking? It's so tempting to rationalize these things away. You might say they're not great at communication, or they've just been hurt before, and while that might be true, it's not an excuse to treat you poorly. Everyone has a past, but not everyone uses their past as a permission slip to hurt others. Emotional availability isn't something that magically appears when you try harder. If they wanted to be there, they would be. If they valued you, they'd show it consistently, not only when they feel like it. What makes this even harder is that they're usually not outright cruel. In fact, they often give you just enough to keep your hope alive, a sweet message here, a little attention there, a breadcrumb that makes you think, maybe this could turn into something real. But that's all it is, breadcrumbs, and you were never meant to survive on crumbs. You deserve a full meal, the kind of love that shows up fully and honestly, the kind of connection that doesn't make you question your worth or chase after validation. The moment you stop excusing someone's behavior and start recognizing it for what it is, you give yourself the opportunity to change the dynamic. That doesn't mean they'll suddenly step up. Most people won't. What it means is that you step up for yourself. You stop waiting for someone else to choose you, and you start choosing yourself by walking away from anything that doesn't meet your standards, by no longer trying to earn love through suffering, and by refusing to stay in spaces where you're treated like an afterthought. In the end, this isn't about blaming them. It's about taking responsibility for how long you stayed once you saw the truth. The moment you shift from asking, "Why aren't they choosing me?" to "Why am I settling for less?" is the moment everything changes. That's where your power lies, not in controlling their behavior, but in recognizing your own worth and acting like it. We all want to be chosen, not just tolerated. not just occasionally acknowledged, but truly chosen. The kind of choosing that feels consistent, intentional, and real. When someone genuinely values you, they make it clear in how they show up. They don't leave you in limbo, they don't keep you second, guessing your place in their life, and they definitely don't make you compete for scraps of attention. Yet so many of us stay stuck in situations where we're constantly questioning, wondering, hoping. We hang on to moments of affection, little signs of care, and convince ourselves that if we're just more patient, more understanding, more available, they'll finally see our worth. But the truth is, love isn't something you should have to earn by lowering your standards. If you're always the one reaching out first, always adjusting to fit their world, always forgiving behavior that doesn't sit right with you, that's not connection, that's imbalance. And you deserve more than to constantly feel like you're chasing someone who can't seem to make up their mind about you. You are not put here to beg for someone's attention or convince them that you're enough. The right person doesn't need convincing. They don't need months or years to realize what's right in front of them. They know, and they act accordingly. It's painful to admit when someone we care about doesn't choose us the way we choose them. It can feel like rejection on the deepest level, as if we're not lovable enough, not interesting enough, not something enough. But that kind of thinking keeps you trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, constantly questioning your own value based on someone else's inconsistent behavior. The truth is, their inability to choose you isn't a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their readiness, their maturity, or simply their priorities. And you don't need to stick around to prove anything to them. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you stop loving people. It doesn't mean you become cold or guarded. It means you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of someone who can't meet you where you are. It means you stop twisting yourself into someone you're not just to stay relevant in their life. It means you trust that being alone is far better than being in a relationship that constantly makes you feel unseen. You get to decide what kind of energy you allow into your world. You get to set the standard for how you want to be loved, and that begins with how you love yourself. The moment you decide to stop settling for almost, everything shifts. You begin to attract different dynamics. You begin to show up differently in your relationships. You're no longer waiting around for someone to choose you, you're choosing you, and because of that, you naturally start filtering out anything that doesn't align with that energy. People feel that shift. The ones who only saw you as an option might notice you pulling back and try to reel you back in with just enough to keep you hooked. But you'll know better. You'll know the difference between real connection and emotional crumbs. Ultimately, you deserve to be chosen every single day, not out of obligation, not because someone feels guilty, but because they genuinely see your value and want to show up for you. That kind of love doesn't feel heavy or confusing or transactional. It feels secure. It feels like peace. And the beautiful thing is, the more you choose yourself, the more you make space for that kind of love to find you. Because you're no longer settling for anything less. Choosing yourself is often misunderstood. People hear it and think it means turning cold, giving up on love, or putting up walls so high that no one can get in. But the truth is, choosing yourself is one of the most loving, grounded things you can do, not just for you, but for every relationship you'll ever be in. It's the point where you stop begging for the bare minimum and start building your life around your worth, not around someone else's inability to see it. It's not selfish, it's self-respect, and when someone keeps treating you like you're an option, the most powerful response isn't to try harder, it's to step back and choose yourself. When you realize that you're constantly overextending in a relationship, the one always initiating, compromising, waiting, hoping, that's your cue. That's the moment where your self-respect needs to kick in louder than your attachment. You don't need to prove your value through effort that isn't reciprocated. Relationships aren't meant to feel like uphill battles where one person gives and the other receives endlessly. The love you give should not cost you your peace, your confidence, or your self-worth. It's easy to fall into the mindset that if you just give more, love harder, or stay longer, you'll finally be seen. But the truth is, if someone doesn't recognize your value from the start, more effort isn't going to change that. It's only going to drain you. And at some point, you have to realize that staying in spaces where you're not valued is a form of self-abandonment. Choosing yourself means refusing to abandon who you are just to be liked or kept around by someone who can't meet you at the level you deserve. Walking away doesn't mean you didn't care. It means you cared enough to stop settling. You can love someone and still leave. You can have deep feelings and still decide they're not treating you in a way that aligns with your worth. That inner shift from needing someone to validate your value to knowing it for yourself is where your power lies. You're no longer looking outward for confirmation. You're grounded in your own truth. That doesn't mean you don't feel the loss, or that it doesn't hurt to walk away. But it does mean that you're choosing long-term peace over short-term comfort. The idea of choosing yourself sounds bold and empowering, and it is. But it's also quiet. It looks like not texting first this time. It looks like not over-explaining your feelings to someone who isn't really listening. It looks like deleting the thread instead of rereading it, hoping to find some hidden meaning in their mixed signals. It's those little moments where you decide, I matter too. It's in the boundaries you set, the standards you uphold, and the energy you no longer chase. People might not understand your decision to walk away. They might say you're being too harsh, too closed off, too quick to give up. But only you know how long you've been waiting for something real. Only you know how exhausting it is to feel like you're not enough, even when you're giving everything. Choosing yourself means you stop needing permission to protect your heart. You don't need their approval. You need your own honesty. There comes a point where your healing becomes more important than their potential, where your peace matters more than their presence, and that's the point where you stop settling for being an option in someone else's life and finally become the main character in your own. You stop trying to be chosen by someone else and choose yourself fully and without apology, because the way you treat yourself sets the standard for how everyone else will. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. When someone consistently disrespects your boundaries, shows up only when it suits them, or makes you feel like you're not worth consistent effort, it's tempting to explain, to justify, to plead your case. You want them to understand how their behavior hurt you. You want them to get it, to finally see your worth and realize what they've been taking for granted. But not everyone deserves that explanation. Not everyone is ready or willing to meet you with the same emotional maturity you bring to the table. And in those moments, silence is not weakness, it's strength. We've been conditioned to believe that we have to express everything, that closure comes from long conversations, that healing only happens when both sides understand each other. But the reality is, closure isn't always something the other person can give you. Sometimes, the most healing, honest, and powerful closure comes when you remove your energy and let your absence speak louder than your presence ever could. Because words can be ignored, twisted, or brushed off, but the sudden lack of access to your energy is unmistakable. It shifts the dynamic in a way that words rarely can. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're bitter or playing games. It means you're done repeating yourself. It means you've realized that no amount of talking will make someone treat you better if they've already shown they won't. You don't need to scream your value. You don't need to argue for respect. If someone has already shown you who they are and how little effort they're willing to put in, your best response is to believe them and then remove yourself without a performance. Not everything needs a dramatic ending. Sometimes, the soft eggs, it is the strongest move you can make. It's in the silence that your self-worth starts to echo, not the kind of silence that comes from suppression or passive aggression, but the kind that comes from deep clarity. The kind that says, I no longer need to convince you to treat me right. I no longer feel responsible for your inability to show up. I'm not disappearing to make you chase me. I'm walking away because you've already made it clear that staying would mean abandoning myself. That kind of silence is rooted in self-respect, not resentment. When you stop explaining yourself, you stop giving people more opportunities to dismiss you. You take back control of the narrative. It's no longer about whether they understand what they did wrong. It's about whether you're willing to keep tolerating it. And when you choose not to, when you disengage without drama, you're sending a message far more powerful than any argument. I value my peace more than I value you being heard by someone who isn't really listening. Silence also allows you to heal. You stop reliving the hurt through repeated conversations. You stop waiting for a response that may never come. You begin to redirect that energy inward toward your own growth, your own clarity, your own wholeness. What was once outward, focused, trying to fix, prove, or gain approval, becomes inward, focused. You start asking yourself better questions. What do I need? What does love look like for me? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? People notice when you go quiet, especially when they've been used to having constant access to your time, attention, and emotions. That shift is felt, but the difference this time is you're not doing it to get a reaction. You're doing it because you finally understand your worth. You've realized that your silence isn't empty, it's full of strength, clarity, and boundaries. It's a statement that says, you had access to me, you lost it, and I don't need to explain why. You can love someone with your whole heart and still come to the realization that their effort doesn't match yours. That realization is painful because love tells you to keep giving, to be patient, to understand their flaws and hold space for their growth. But love alone isn't enough. A relationship built on one person over-functioning and the other under-delivering will always collapse under the weight of imbalance. You might think that if you just keep giving, they'll eventually catch up. But the truth is, when effort isn't mutual, resentment grows in the space where partnership should exist. It's important to understand that love is not measured by how intensely you feel about someone, but by how you both show up for each other consistently, intentionally, and with care. That doesn't mean grand gestures or constant communication. It means showing up when it counts. It means being emotionally available, being willing to work through hard conversations, and making each other feel safe and seen. When someone isn't doing that, when they're inconsistent, when they don't prioritize you, when you feel more anxious than secure, you need to stop matching their emotion and start matching their effort. You can feel deeply about someone, but if they're not meeting you halfway, that love becomes a one-way street. You start shrinking yourself just to fit into the space they've made for you, a space that's far too small for your heart and your needs. You tolerate things you never thought you would, just to keep the connection alive, but surviving in a relationship is not the same as thriving in one. And love that constantly makes you doubt yourself is not love worth holding onto. Matching effort means observing, not assuming. If they cancel plans last minute, stop rearranging your schedule for them. If they take hours or days to respond, don't double text trying to get their attention. If they don't initiate, stop always being the one who does. This isn't about playing games, it's about protecting your peace. It's about saying, I'm willing to give, but only to someone who gives in return. When you start matching their effort instead of their emotion, you begin to see the truth more clearly. You stop romanticizing potential and start dealing with reality. And the reality might be that they're not capable of giving you what you need. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable. Maybe they're not ready. Maybe they just don't value the relationship the way you do. Whatever the reason is, it's not your job to carry the whole thing on your back. That's not love, that's emotional labor disguised as loyalty. You don't earn love by suffering through someone's indifference. You don't get the relationship you deserve by proving how patient or forgiving you can be. You get it by choosing not to settle for anything less than mutual respect and effort. At some point, you have to stop asking, "Why aren't they trying?" and start asking, "Why am I accepting this?" That shift in perspective is everything. It brings the power back to you. You realize that the answer isn't in trying harder, it's in stepping back. When you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, stop making excuses for why they're not showing up, you give yourself the space to be chosen by someone who will. Someone who won't need convincing, someone who sees your value without needing to be reminded of it. Matching effort is not about punishment or withdrawal, it's about alignment. If someone wants to be in your life, they will show you. If they don't, your silence and your distance will speak for you. You don't have to beg, plead, or perform. You just have to stand in your worth, because when someone's effort doesn't match yours, the strongest thing you can do is stop trying to make up the difference. When someone truly values you, they don't need to be convinced to show up. They don't hesitate or falter. Their actions naturally reflect their feelings. The idea that someone has to be persuaded, coaxed, or chased in order to stay committed is a sign that the foundation of the relationship isn't solid. If a person genuinely wants you in their life, they'll make it clear through consistent presence, genuine effort, and an unwavering choice to prioritize you. Waiting around for someone to realize your worth is often just waiting to be disappointed. The harsh reality is that not everyone is ready or capable of valuing you the way you deserve. Sometimes people have their own emotional baggage, distractions, or priorities that prevent them from fully showing up. But no matter the reason, if you find yourself constantly needing to convince someone of your worth, it's a clear indicator that they don't see you as a priority. And while that hurts, it's actually a blessing in disguise because it frees you from investing energy where it won't be returned. When you understand that the right person won't need convincing, your entire approach to relationships shifts. You stop trying to fix, explain, or negotiate your way into someone's heart. You stop chasing after someone's attention or affection like it's a prize to be won. Instead, you focus on being the best version of yourself, grounded, confident, and fully aware of your value. You let your standards do the work, not your desperation. There's something incredibly freeing about no longer needing external validation. When you're secure in your worth, you become magnetic in a way that's impossible to fake. People are naturally drawn to confidence that comes from within, not from seeking approval. And that confidence doesn't come from arrogance. It comes from knowing you deserve respect, love, and consistency, and refusing to settle for anything less. This doesn't mean you become closed off or unwilling to invest in relationships. It means you invest your time and energy wisely with people who show up for you as much as you do for them. It means setting boundaries that protect your heart and your peace, and it means having the courage to walk away when those boundaries are crossed or ignored. One of the biggest traps people fall into is the myth that love requires sacrifice at the cost of your own self-worth. The truth is, love should enhance your life, not diminish it. If you're constantly doubting yourself, wondering if you're enough, or making excuses for someone's inconsistent behavior, that's not love, that's survival mode. Real love brings peace, it brings joy, it brings a deep sense of security and belonging. When someone values you, they show it not just in grand gestures, but in the everyday choices they make. They choose to spend time with you even when it's inconvenient. They listen when you talk, really listen. They remember the little things that matter to you and show up in ways that build trust. They don't make you question where you stand or what you mean to them because their actions speak louder than words. The moment you fully internalize this, you stop wasting energy on people who don't prioritize you. You stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that weren't meant for you. You start attracting relationships where you're chosen willingly, enthusiastically, and consistently. You reclaim your power by refusing to settle for anything less than the respect and love you deserve. In the end, the right person doesn't need convincing because they already know what they have in you. They choose you every day without hesitation or doubt. And until that person comes along, your job is to be so rooted in your own worth that settling feels impossible, because you know what it means to be truly chosen. At the end of the day, recognizing when you're being treated like an option is the first step toward reclaiming your power. Choosing yourself isn't about bitterness or giving up on love. It's about honoring your worth, setting clear boundaries, and refusing to settle for anything less than the respect and consistency you deserve. When you stand firm in your value, you no longer wait around for someone else to decide your place in their life. Instead, you become the one who chooses your peace, your happiness, and your future. Remember, the right people will see your worth without hesitation and show up for you fully. Until then, keep choosing yourself, because that's where your true strength and freedom lie.